everybody, how's it going? Welcome to What is Fabrizio Inking. I'm Fabrizio. It has been quite some time, so if technical difficulties appear or I just completely lose my mind while speaking, then I apologize for that. I just got done spilling a bottle of ink on my sink moments before I started. That always ends up happening because I get out my ink and my brushes, and as I'm doing that, invariably I spill something or I forget something, and it goes crazy. Hey, John's Longbox, how's it going? I cannot keep up with the number of streams that you have, but I try to catch them. Usually I'm just drawing in the background. So it's almost the soundtrack of Horace H. Hoover is your live streams and a few other people's. Speaking of which, music, no music. I've had somebody complain about music in the background, but I feel like just my boring voice is a hard sell. I'll put something in the background. If people decide that's too much, just let me know. I'll put it pretty low in the background. Hey Ernest, how's it going? Marcus, what's up? Thanks for popping in, I appreciate it. It has been like 2 months or something since the last time I streamed. John's Longbox. Question, how do you deal with your Innsmouth look? I find that hats work wonders as well as perfumes. Whew, that's a tough one. I just try to make sure I don't hang out with anybody that doesn't look like a fish. So I hang out in fish markets mostly when I'm not in my house. So when people are sort of scanning the counters for fish, they see, haddock, trout, Fabrizio, shrimp, and they don't really think anything of it. That's how I usually do it. Perfume, yeah, definitely. Marcus, thanks again for the comics. Yeah, no problem. Marcus had ordered issue 3, and I put issue 1 and 2 in there too, for a bunch of reasons. One of them is that the letters page has like little mini stories in them. So if you only have the alternative versions, you don't get those like little mini epistolary stories. So, and plus Marcus is always cool about pushing Horace H. Hoover, just like John's Longbox, and I always appreciate that. So today is a little different. This is, and I don't even know what to call this. This is like possible future concept art. So whenever I'm coming up with a new book or a new story idea, doing essentially like a fake finished piece of something that could exist helps me write. So I had a seed of an idea for a book, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna kind of do this finished cover to a book that doesn't exist. And as I fill it out, I get ideas for the characters and potential stories and things like that. So that's what this is. It really started with, now this is probably a story way down the ways, right? After Horace H. Hoover, after this other dark fantasy book I want to do. But I just had a weird, it was always a dream, right? I had it in a dream. It was all from a dream. But I had a weird dream with these really tall houses. They were like the size of, 20 foot, like a skyscraper type building. But it's a house with a chimney and a roof. And I had to go up and down it. And essentially it's the size of a room. But it just goes up, 20 stories. And the whole town was like these weird column houses. And I had this dream about I had to, crawl, or I had to run up it and then down it, and then these little bridges that connect it. That's all I remember from my dream. So I just started with that imagery, And then I just kind of grew out of that, and threw some characters on here. So that's the best description I can give of this drawing. So now I'm going to be inking it. So I started this on Ben Soto's stream. So I got a little bit into it, somewhat. And once this is done, what I'll do is basically, whenever I'm sitting down to write the story, I'll have this as like a starting point. It'll like reframe my thinking immediately, as opposed to looking at some notes and then picking up where I left off. I hope that makes some sense for those out there. I have offered many hobos bottles of rum, and none of them have ever regaled me with tales of sailors and old religions. Yeah, I have a feeling that if you offered a bum today a bottle of rum, you would be regaled with bodily fluids, is my guess. I don't know if you would get much other than that. And plus, isn't rum, I mean, I don't want to say it's low class, but people are looking for like fancy drugs and things like that nowadays. Alrighty, I guess I should start inking, right? I'll zoom in a bit here. Any questions, let me know. And anybody that pops in and wants to see the original drawing too, let me know. Because sometimes the blue line is hard to see on that. I'm using a Winsor Newton Series 7, number 2 today. Usually my go-to between the 2 and the 3, depending on which one can hold the point. These like fake, and again, I'm gonna call them fake. I mean, it's real concept art, but you know, instead of a bunch of sketches and concept art, I just like having this finished poster or splash page of a book. It's actually how I approached Horace H. Hoover. Before I started the book, I did these covers of a comic book that didn't exist. And it allowed me to imagine it finished. So we'll see. It also is pretty low pressure, because if I want to change something on the fly, then, you know, it's okay, because there isn't a book or anything else out there that conflicts with it. So if, you know, as I'm inking this, I really want to go in a different direction, I can totally do it, and it's not a big deal. Marcus, I usually use a Raphael 8404, but my Winsor Newton 7 is behaving better. Yeah, I go back and forth between, there's a Da Vinci, the Winsor Newton, but sometimes the Winsor Newtons out of the box are really good and sometimes they aren't, so it just depends. But I have found that if you stick with it, sometimes even out of the box, it might not behave like you want it to. And if you essentially use it enough, it sort of breaks in the brush. So over Christmas and New Year's and essentially the past couple of months, I've been working on some other things. Kind of jumped back into sculpting a little bit. And I have two things, and I'll show one later on today. But it was a way for me to sort of, I don't know, recalibrate, just kind of step back for a little bit, work on something else before I jump back into Horace H. Hoover, which I have. My wife is asking if most of Pennsylvania has strict alcohol sales rules. They do. You can't buy them. Well, okay, there's going to be a big caveat, but let's just say for my entire life, yes, that's been true. You couldn't buy alcohol anywhere else unless it was a state store or a beer distributor. But the past, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, some grocery stores are now allowed to carry beer. And I don't know how they get around it, because you do have to actually check out separately. So you buy your beer, you check out, and then you get your groceries. You can't actually check out in the same spot. So I don't know the legality of it. It's still a pain in the butt, though. But any non-beer alcohol, from what I gather, is still has to be purchased at a state store. It is really weird. Like when you go to other states, you can just grab some wine at the grocery store or something like that. And PA is just stuck. Yeah, the sculpting that I did, I used to sculpt and do 3D, I would say primarily, it was a good chunk of the time I spent. Some was drawings, but a lot was 3D and sculpting. And I have some old sculptures that I sort of put down whenever I started doing comics. So some of them are kind of old, like 6 years, 4 or 5, they're getting up there in years. But I like to pull them back out and finish them. A lot of people just abandon projects, and then it's always that nagging feeling in the back of your head when you drop a project, at least for me. And it sucks. Like you spent so much time doing a game or wrote a book or something like that, and you don't finish it. You really don't have a lot to show for it. You might have learned like techniques or process or software, but you don't have an actual product at the end of it, and that hurts sometimes. So even if it's an old project, if I feel it has merit, I don't, I look at it as, well, I'll jump back to it eventually. Maybe not anytime soon, but eventually. And then, you might only have 15-20% left of the project. So it feels kind of great. You jump into an 80% done project. At the time, it felt insurmountable to finish, but now you just have to put in another week or 2 weeks, or another week or two of work, and now you have a finished product. So that's what I like to do that occasionally, just kind of dip back into some old projects, see if I can finish them up. That rule about can't buy booze and food at the same time is really annoying. Yeah, I don't understand it. I think it goes way back to our state makeup, basically. Not that I buy much alcohol. I basically buy alcohol whenever my brother is in town. But that's it. We have, a bottle of rum that has lasted years at this point, We just really don't do much anymore. This guy's fingernails are kind of based on, and I don't know if it's like I don't want to call it a disorder, but it's a weird thing. And I don't know if you notice, some people have these really big, flat fingernails that cover like the entire width of their finger. Look at Mickey Rourke, at least recently, and you look at his fingers, and they cover the entire width. So there's no actual skin on either side. This is the kind of stuff that you notice, unfortunately, and they get stuck in your head. And then when you sit down to draw, that's what you picture. So, look at Mickey Rourke's fingernails. He's the only one I can think of. So that's what I was thinking of when I was doing this guy's fingernails. Not that this guy is based on Mickey Rourke, but whatever disorder that is. The time period and sort of the setting for this, I might as well give it up now because it's probably going to be years before I do anything with it. But the premise, and I know as soon as I say this, I'll regret it, but whatever, is that it's, imagine like if all silent films were like set in a city. So, think about Phantom of the Opera and Nosferatu and all that kind of stuff. And then the whole city is essentially filled with these silent film characters. So everything looks kind of like a set. I know this sounds kind of crazy and weird, but that was the premise for this. So it's going to be these characters that sort of inhabit an alternate, we'll say New York City or Hollywood, or I don't know, I guess it would be Hollywood. But with all these silent film characters running around. The Man Who Laughs, all that stuff. Hey, Creative Faye, how's it going? That was a good interview with Jake Parker the other day. Yeah, I've been listening to his podcast for a long time, and he's got some fun artwork. I've never read anything that he did, though, but he has a lot of good info on his podcast for sure. Hey, Kibo, how's it going? A drunk stream sounds awesome, and I think that's referred to as clubbed nails. Is it? I didn't know that. To anybody out there who has clubbed nails, I apologize. I don't mean to make fun of your disorder, but it was just, it's one of those things, as artists, you notice things, and then it gets put in a bucket, and then when you draw or you're concepting, that's the kind of stuff that actually lends a little bit of, I don't want to say realism, but interest. Ernest, I did notice that about Mickey Rourke, especially in Iron Man 2. I knew it. Yeah, it was just one of those things that sticks out, and then I don't know. All right, I got to move from this area. Getting a little too focused on that. DC Miller, Mickey Rourke's fingernails solved. Now someone explained Val Kilmer's elbow in Heat. Dude. Every time I watch Heat, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I notice his elbow and I'm in the room with somebody else, unless somebody points it out, it can go completely unnoticed. But once you notice it, it's crazy. And then you're trying to figure out what is going on, what happened, why does this have this huge egg on his elbow? I mean, obviously they didn't care enough to... That's showing, yeah. They didn't care enough to hide it or reshoot it from an angle where you didn't see it. So surely they noticed and they just didn't care to explain it. But yeah, that's another one. I haven't added that into any characters though, so I don't think you'll see any characters with giant eggs on the end of their elbows. The other reason I like doing these finished concept art pieces is you have a finished drawing at the end. And sometimes that's nice. You can fill sketchbooks and sketchbooks filled with concept art, and here is the character, I don't know, punching, and you're just showing the torso, and here's the character being sad on a bench like Keanu Reeves or something. But you don't get any finished drawings until you actually work on the project. But if you do one of these, you really get a sense of what a polished version of the character might look like. I have reams and reams of just concept art that kind of gets thrown in a pile and you don't really look at again unless you're cleaning things out, unless you're moving and you need to throw stuff away. So having a finished drawing is just a way to sort of crystallize the concepts in a way that sticks around. Cheaper at Walmart. I might have missed that. Skyheart is harder to find. Oh yeah. His elbow is a store. Is it? No, not in Heat, right? They don't mention it. His olecranon bursitis. I wondered if I was the only one who noticed that so much. So, man, Kibo, you're really on the ball with these weird anatomical things. Doesn't Val Kilmer have some sort of condition? Yeah, I think now he has cancer, and it's pretty sad. But back then, as far as I know, he didn't have any issues. Ernest broke his arm while filming The Doors when he performed a jump from the stage into the crowd, and the stuntman failed to catch him. Ouch. The injury has left with an abnormal growth on his left elbow. That's been a mystery to me for 25, 30 years. And now that it's solved, I'm a little sad. I kind of liked the idea of not knowing what happened to his elbow. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, somebody stage diving into a crowd and not getting caught. That I've seen that happen once at a show Is it Faith No More? And big, huge dude, like, we're talking like 300 pounds or something, stage dives, and people, rightfully so, were afraid to catch him. At that point, you're gonna have some serious neck pains. So he like just went right into the ground. That was brutal. I've seen it happen other places too, but this was in person, and you just like, I mean, I don't blame people for stepping back. It sets up the looming Heat sequel. Man, I wish there was a Heat sequel. I had to study a lot of A&P in mortuary school. Hey all, stay safe and warm. Duty's on. Wow, that's awesome. Have a good one. No, that's okay. It's a mystery that's solved now. Yeah. Happened to me right to the floor. Basically belly flopped to the floor. Oh, jeez. That's hard to hear. If anybody is in the Pittsburgh area, there is a very small short Comic-Con on February 2nd. It's at Helicon? Let me look. I'll post a link before I finish, but it's only for one day. It's February 2nd, and it's just, I think it's a brewery, essentially, that they have a little Comic-Con in from 12 to 5. It's from 12 to 5 on the 2nd, and I will be there. It's a very short con, but it's real close to me. It's like a half hour away, and I haven't really seen anybody or done anything in a while, so I thought it'd be fun. I will post more on social media for sure. Oops. Thanks, Creative Faye. Yeah, I started with at least Mantis as the concept, and then I kind of deviate. I'm a big fan of start with something recognizable and then just kind of take a bit of a left turn. Alrighty. So speaking of unfinished projects, this character here, and it's kind of hard to tell, but essentially think of a guy, he's in overalls, he has the beard without the mustache, he's holding a razor blade. When I was I don't know how long this, 15 years ago or something like that, I had drawn this character. At the time, I really wasn't doing comics. I'm just drawing random things. I'm not really writing because I don't feel like I'm good enough to write at the time. But I have like this pile of characters still, and I tried to write something for him, and I couldn't figure anything out. So again, this has been kind of hanging out in the back of my head for all of those years. He seemed to fit this drawing, this time period, so it's almost like it wasn't wasted. And sometimes things do get thrown away officially, and you never use them again, and they're wasted. But sometimes repurposing or, bringing back to life and then modifying, it's always worth it to try to do that. Because sometimes it just takes it just takes a little more concentration or focus on something to finish it. Because you draft it for a reason, and usually the reason is you don't have the skills to finish it. Sometimes it's time, sometimes it's other things, but so that's why, years later, when you get more skills, look at the stuff that you did drop and see if any of those projects can get brought back to life now that you have some more skills. I have another little story about that. 20 years ago, something like that, I was sitting at my drawing desk, a desk that I built, and I had designed a chess set and a chess board. It was a cool, minimalist chess board, but it was very interesting and clever and kind of cool. And I'd never seen anything like it. It was just a sketch. And since then I had moved 4 different times, but this sketch and construction of this chessboard stuck with me, and I, packed it up, and every time we moved, I'd pull it out and say, yeah, I really need to make some time to build that chessboard. There's not much to it. And then, 20 some years later, I moved into my last house, had a garage, had tools, and had some time, and I finished that chessboard. And it was one of my favorite things that I ever built. So, yeah, even something 20 years old that was a random sketch can kind of be brought back to life and finished. Creative phase. Sometimes they were actually meant to be a supporting character. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you have something, but you don't know where to put them. So if you hang on to them, sure, you can put them in something else. Maybe it's a different time period. Maybe, like you said, it's a supporting character as opposed to a main character. Ernest, the new resin model looks great. When are they going to be up for sale? Oh man, you know what? I will show that now. So there is, I've shown this before, but why not? So this is a Horace H. Hoover resin model that I sculpted and had fabricated about a year ago at this point. It's about 5 inches tall, very nice, beautifully painted by Evan Morgan. I have his link somewhere. And I have painted and unpainted kits basically. So what I want to do is every 6 months to a year come out with a new character that'll sort of fill in the group. So the next one I did is Max, and I sculpted this a while ago, but I wanted to do a painted version. So this is the rendered painted version of Max. And it will be in the same scale. So I think the Horace H. Hoover is I can't remember, 1/12th, 1/15th. I can't remember what scale it is exactly. But this will be in the same scale. So you'll have Horace, and then you'll have Max, who's a little shorter. And then I'm currently working on Slurp, who will be a little taller than all of them together. So, it depends on interest. And, maybe I can throw this on a Kickstarter. The only thing is these things take a decent amount of time to fabricate. So it could be one of those deals where it's on the Kickstarter and I fulfill the comic, I fulfill everything that I can, and then the model is just going to be, it could be 3 months or more after that. And as long as people are okay with that, then I'm okay with it. But I would definitely need advanced warning, and then it's a decent timeline to get those actually done. Ernest at CBGB's. Oh man, I've never been to CBGB's. You were like, that was the heyday. You're like in the 80s, New York. Yeah. I am jealous, I'm not gonna lie. Hey Blake, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a while. Hope everything's good. Love the scale of the hands. Is that for the mantis or? Cool, I'm gonna make a fighting game with them as minis. Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. So, yeah, if there's interest, I would love to get Max done this year. But the priority really is the comic book, getting issue 4 and issue 5 done before the end of the year. And then we'll see what happens after that, actually. On Max. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Max is one of those characters where scale really matters, because when you're doing short people, there's a few things that actually like show that he's short. And one of those is his head. The head has to be a really specific proportion to the rest of the body. If not, he'll just look like, if I shrunk his head down really small, he would look like the Hulk, which would make him look huge. But if I blow up the head a little bit and the hands, you get, little person, not little person, but really short person, but still robust, we'll say. In comic books, I was trying to think of like the little people in comic books. The first person I always think of is Puck from Alpha Flight. I always loved Puck, but he seems really small, extraordinarily small. Who else is there? Okay, you guys are gonna have to help me. What other like really short people are in comics? I don't know why, but I'm thinking of that Image. Is it Youngblood or no? That Image one. The Jim Lee. What was Jim Lee's Image team book? Whatever that was. Wildcats. There's a short guy there, but he looked kind of weird because he looked like a regular person, but they just made him short. There's the dude from DC. Didn't he run or have something to do with like the Justice League International? Wasn't there a short guy that had something to do with them? Wolverine is supposed to be small. Yeah, although they kind of draw him small, but honestly not really. I know they say he's small, and they'll put him next to other characters to make him look small, but proportionally speaking, they don't make him small. Lord Emp, yeah, that's right, from Wildcats. Full Metal Alchemist. I don't know Full Metal Alchemist. Lord Emp was Kirby. Oh, I didn't know that. That's really interesting. But anyway, making short characters is harder than you think if you really want to make them look short and not like just scaled down. That's the best way I can describe it. Full Metal is a manga. Yeah, I know of it. I've never read it or seen it, I should say. I know that there was a anime of it. Dr. Robug is short. That's a great example from John's book, Heroic Tales. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Renzo did a really good job to show him actually being small, short. And the question about this drawing that I'm doing currently, and since I've kind of given away the premise of it, is, you know, do I put it out now, you know, with teasers for the next 2 years, or just kind of go back into hiding, and whenever it's done, and hope that nobody has stolen my idea since then? That is always the kicker, right? Did you ever read the comic Madman? No, I haven't. I know of it, never read it though. I always thought of DC's Demon as being short. Huh. He's large, but he is squat, now that you mention it. Yeah, he does have those proportions of like a squat. I'm trying to think of, but I don't think he's shorter than anybody else. Going back to the like people stealing your ideas. So people are always a little cavalier about, nobody's going to steal your ideas. Nobody's going to steal your ideas. Over the past 5 years or so, I don't know about that. People really take other people's ideas all the time, I think. I think the kicker is just don't care. You know, if you come up with an idea and you know you didn't steal it or take it from something, then it's fine. There's a great little interview of David Lynch, who recently passed, and I'm going to butcher it, but basically, when asked about coming up with ideas and is it original, and he kept on responding to, it's original to me. I've never seen this, or whatever it is. I've never seen this idea, this character portrayed before, so it's original to me, therefore it is original. And I kind of taking that approach, and I think it's true. I think as long as something is original to you, then it's okay. Because especially now, you know, in a world of 7 billion people, can I verify somehow that nobody has come up with this concept before? It's really impossible for me to know. There's hundreds of thousands of comic books made every year, hundreds of movies, millions of books, you know, in a million different languages. It's really impossible to know. So I kind of look at it as, if you come up with an idea and you know it's original, just do it. Because I'm really starting to think there's only such thing as locally original. I don't think you can actually be globally original. I don't think it's possible. The key is to have really bad ideas and you're safe. Well, then I am golden. I'm golden. Nobody, so far, I don't think anybody's stolen the idea of a detective with a vacuum cleaner on his head. But I said this before, there might be somebody out there with a vacuum cleaner on his head. And it doesn't really make a difference to me. As long as you start to, I don't know the best way to describe it, but layer ideas. So let's say, for example, when I sat down, came up with a Horace H. Hoover, I had never seen anything like it, and that's great. But it could, let's say, exist somewhere across the globe. If I had Google, well, I did Google, but if I had somehow found that somebody else had that similar idea, I would have stopped dead in my tracks and moved on to something else. But since I didn't do that, I came up with his powers, his background, his personal relationships, Max and Slurp, the characters. So I allowed myself to take it so far that even if somebody across the globe had the concept of a guy with a vacuum cleaner on his head who investigates, it doesn't make a difference because it can't be the same thing because I've layered all of these other ideas on top of it. So that's kind of how I look at it. So if somebody wants to steal an idea at this point, go for it. At minimum, I have a live stream, showing my concept for it. But go for it. Cerebus is short. That's true. I definitely mean more like human, because if it's not human, then it's, well, no, the proportions matter, but it's more like a relative thing. Atomic Robo is short, but boxy. Yeah. Part of it is how you mix your ingredients. Yeah, for sure. We had the same thought. Yep. Someone with a shampooer for a head. Hey, no spoilers for issue 5, please. Thank you very much. And for me, it's interesting. It's almost 4 o'clock here, but a lot of people come up with their ideas and execute them differently, and that's fine. But this is how I do it. Unless I have like an emotional hook, I can't feel the story. I know that sounds kind of lame, but I can come up with the genre and the setting and maybe costume designs, but until I really get like some sort of emotional hook into a character or something, it doesn't feel like I have it yet. So, I mean, this is a good example. I have character designs, I have a setting, I have just a sense of the book, but I don't have like an emotional through line. And by emotional, I don't mean like an overly dramatic, soap opera. I just mean, what, like one of these characters, at least one of these characters, like, just a hook, like what dramatic thing or what conflict are they going to go through to make it interesting? So but until I have that, it's still sort of amorphous and ethereal. But sometimes it's just looking at the drawing, and then it just kind of comes to you. Maybe I'll get by the time I ink it, color it, and finish it, and maybe come up with a name, then it might be ready. Marcus, no, I agree about having an emotional hook. Giving the story meaning and theme. Yeah, and like this other story that I'm going to be doing at some point in time, I had the genre, the setting. I even had a couple of characters and kind of what they would do, but until I figured out the beginning and the very impactful emotional end, I didn't have a way to get into the story. But now that I have that, I know what to do next. Because if not, I think, and a lot of people suffer from this, you just get like pastiches of other stories kind of crammed together into something that vaguely resembles a new story. Almost like, I think of Lovecraft. There's a million, and I mean literally a million Lovecraft stories out there that are just like pastiches. They're all like Auguste Derleth's version of Lovecraft stuff. They mention some ancient gods, and there's some creepy stuff, but it doesn't feel original. I'm just kind of spitballing because I actually think the emotional hook could change everything. So if you have a story and everything is the same, setting, characters, even plot, but like the emotional stakes are different, that's a different story completely. And if you go in with the emotional stakes being somebody's dying and they need to find a cure for whatever they're dying from, as opposed to the emotional stake being somebody wants to save somebody from dying. Those are two different stories, even if the setting and everything else is the same. All right, I think I'm about ready. Alrighty. My brush is getting gunked up, so I think I'm going to call it. Plus, I'm getting very hot. Yeah. It's moving along. We'll see if I post this on social media with a name and some character like nameplates on here, then you know this is going to kind of move forward quickly. If not, might get put in the back of my brain and sit on it for a bit. All right, everybody. This has been fun. I appreciate everybody popping on. It's been a long time. Hope everybody has a good rest of their Sunday. And I will be back probably every Sunday doing this for sure. If anybody has any comments or questions, I'm on Twitter, occasionally on Instagram. I guess I put emotional stakes in my story as well. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You know, it works in tandem with the plot and the characters and all that. But yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks again, everybody. I appreciate it. Have a good night, and I will talk to you later. Bye.